power supplies, and they're just really not happy. Anyway, right, so, who's heard of Cloud Foundry? Anyone? Good. OpenStack? Right, okay. And then Docker, yeah. So, what BlueMix is effectively, it's the ability to run Cloud Foundry jobs, virtual machines on OpenStack, Docker containers, all in one environment. And the idea is that it's a platform as a service, and the fun part is you can choose where you're going to run the stuff. One could be on your own premises, the other could be in a separately hosted environment on software. So this is the kind of intro to software. I don't work in the software group. They asked me to come and speak today, but I said I would mention software at least twice. I've done that now. And then the third part is you could actually run that again in software, that's full-time, and then it's shared tenancy. But what's really nice about it is the whole bunch of services on this platform and service you can connect to, including things like Watson. Now, I don't know how many people have heard of Watson before. IBM Watson? Yeah, a few of you, all right. So if you want a bit of a laugh about the state of AI, go on to YouTube and look for IBM Watson Jeopardy. Because in 2011, what we did for our 100th anniversary of IBM is we built the system to play the American game show Jeopardy. What was really good fun about that was that it beat the pants off the best human players. Now, in the States, Jeopardy is, you've heard of Jeopardy, it's where you get the answers and you've got to say what the question is. And it beat the pants off the human players of Jeopardy. It wasn't connected to the internet, didn't use Google search. It had a body of knowledge that it could take the questions and understand and reason about them. And some of the services that are spun off from Watson are things you can run on the system we call BlueMix. So I thought I'd have a bit of fun today. And I don't know how good my connectivity is, but what I would do typically is go and build an app like this, and I will cheat and use a boilerplate. Let's see if they're there. And here's one, it's called Personality Insights. So if I click on that, and, sorry, what was your name? Chris. Chris, okay. So Chris, I'll make this for you. Now, we've not met before, have we? Chris Person. One in case there's another Chris. Now, what's happening in the background now is that's going away and it's pulling off some sample code. And it's setting up an environment to run this, including a Watson service, which looks at your personality. That's going and doing its thing now. And if this doesn't work, then I've got a video. And then what it's doing here is talking about how you can actually start deploying your applications. And because I'm picking up a Cloud Foundry type application, then there's the command line, and you can use Eclipse and other IDEs and so on. Anything that can push Cloud Foundry apps. And in the background, it's busy staging the application. Okay, so we've got that. And here it's building up that application. Oh, I might struggle a bit because I don't have much memory left. I've used it all. Okay, not too serious. Here's one I built earlier. And here's the Personality Insights application. And what it does is it takes a whole bunch of text and analyzes it and gives you an idea of the person's personality. Now, this is the public demonstration version of the service. Many of our customers are taking this and using it internally, and they train all these systems, including this personality analysis. And if I run that and analyze it, that's a little Watson symbol, and it comes up with an idea of your personality. Now, I'll give you guys the URL to this so you can go and play around with it. It's really good fun to get your boss's emails, and then if it's like my boss, he sends me very terse emails, so what I do is I splice all ones together, and it gives you an idea of the person's personality. Now, the practical applications of this, so for example, you can take this technology and use it as an advertising agency. Look at your copy. In fact, I picked up some of the stuff on ILM's website that you guys could hear. The film Lucy described what you guys did on that. Brilliant film, brilliant work, by the way. Perhaps you personally. But anyway, there you go. So, when you look at your extroversion score on this, you know, it could be quite low. Now, what I did here was I analysed Moby Dick, The first 2 paragraphs on Moby Dick. And then I thought, that's kind of boring because most people don't read those kind of books anymore. However, what we could do is, again, here's what I did earlier. I went along and I scraped a whole lot of stuff from Richard Branson's blog. Now, Virgin have this thing called Virgin Unite. Brilliant, brilliant charity. Really great work. And Richard blogs on this, apparently. So let's have a look. You are heartfelt, rational, and helpful. Okay, self-assured, yeah, that's probably... So, if you actually look at some of the words here, and this is the important bit, adventurousness, yeah, I take it, yeah, that's Richard. If you go down and look, excitement-seeking, 8%. So I have a theory that Richard actually doesn't write his blog, and that someone else goes there and says the things he thinks he wants them to say. But this is an example of building an application really quickly on Cloud Foundry and then deploying it and running it. And if you start putting in the auto-scaling bits, you can start doing the scaling up and scaling down. Now, what has this got to do with DevOps? Alright, so, in my dashboard, let me just show you this first. See there's a button there, add git. Oh, Chris, there's your version of it. If you add git here, what that effectively does is go around and create a whole project. And again, I'll leave this running in the background. So give me a second, it'll create a repository or prompt me to it. And then gives you a system pretty much like this. So first of all, there's an Orion-based editor here you can start using to edit your code and so on. And then there's a DevOps pipeline here. Well, a bit of a one. And here I've got a build and deploy stage. So the act of hitting that add git button actually goes away and creates a whole lot of stuff, including a simple pipeline. There's editors, there's a Git repository, or you can hook up to other sort of IBM type repositories as well as Git, and then you can run it through. So the question then becomes that and I talk to a lot of people who are trying to implement DevOps and try and help them, and some of the challenges they have are things like, how do they actually spin up virtual machines? They have processes which take them 2 or 3 weeks to get a single virtual machine. So this kind of thing is absolutely magic to them. And so the idea that when you start having these kind of systems, and there are other ones that do similar things, then how on earth do you justify some of the infrastructure costs and the infrastructure people that you have working for you? Because they're basically sitting around doing nothing, maybe managing the system, and that's about it. So it can be really quite hard and quite difficult if you don't have these kind of systems to implement some form of DevOps. And traditionally what people do is they'll go and look at the infrastructure side first, and then they will look at some of the tooling and so on to actually make this a bit more efficient. So if I run this pipeline, and by the way I was really cheating because I didn't put a test stage in here. If I run this pipeline, it will go and build, it will then pass it on to my deployment stage. Sorry, you can't see some of the stuff on here. And then go and start deploying that technology. And so your application is there. Now, because it's a platform as a service, what we do is, as I said before, lots of really fun services on here. Some of those are things like that little build pipeline I showed you there. That's a service. Some of them are to do things like the personality insight service, which we picked up and ran in that sample application. And other ones which are more traditional things like data stores and SQL and NoSQL-like database and so on. So what we find that a lot of our customers doing is taking this kind of technology, assembling applications really quickly, and then deploying them. And if they want, they can start scaling these up or down into production. And I'll finish on one more story, and that was from Wimbledon. So IBM does a lot of work with Wimbledon, and we use these kinds of technologies and the scaling at Wimbledon. And one of the things we do is we use some analytics to look at things like Twitter feeds and try and predict what's going to be happening in terms of the load on our servers. Because you know what Wimbledon's like. No one goes near the website for 50 weeks of the year, and for 2 weeks it's just massively overloaded. That's what we've got to cope with. And so one year, what they did is they saw a spike for a certain well-known bank associated with Wimbledon. And this was about the time that this bank was having trouble with their ATMs and people couldn't withdraw money and so on. And what had happened is the BBC coverage had panned around the room and focused on a person who happened to be the MD stroke CEO of that company, sitting watching Wimbledon while his customers couldn't get their money out of the bank. And so what they did is the IBM team there could actually go and let people know and get this guy hauled out of the centre court of Wimbledon. And the reason they could do that is they were watching that information coming in. More importantly, what we really use this for is to actually ramp up those servers and ramp them down as we need them. And so it's that kind of mentality and that sort of thing, and you don't have time, you know, as you guys don't, to sit there and spin up a new workstation, spin up a new environment, whatever it might be. So this kind of technology we're using with customers to A, make sure they can put together stuff really quickly and use all these fancy services and so on. And finally, to actually just get that DevOps flow going without having a lot of infrastructure or admin anyway. So that's the 15-minute advertorial about BlueMix. If you want to have a play with this, the URL that I tend to use for that personality insights is person-insights.mybluemix.net. I'll make sure you guys get a link to that. And you go and have a play. Go and get your boss's emails and put them through. Depending on the outcome, you may or may not want to show it to them afterwards, but it was quite fun. And the other thing, if you want to actually play with all this technology, BlueMix.net is a website you can go to and try it out. It's free for 30 days, you can use as much as you want there. And this is real much as you want as opposed to OneDrive. But then the point is that after 30 days, we'll then start asking for credit cards. So, okay. Anyway, that's a bit of fun I've been having with BlueMix.
Any questions for Anthony?
Any questions about me?
Hi. How do you deal with configuration, especially configuration between different environments, say staging or production, including secrets? How would that work in BlueMix?
So we have this concept of spaces. So there's organizations, you know, your organization, you'll have spaces inside it, and then that little pipeline can be used to deploy to not only your development space, but also your pre-prod and your test and your production spaces. So that's one of the ways we isolate it and have those different spaces so you can run that dev, test, prod type pipeline as well.
Okay.
Having passwords, for example.
How do you
Imagine you need a password to access a third-party website, and you have different accounts in testing and production. How would that work?
Okay, so the question I repeated is that if you've got different passwords and logins to other third-party servers, how do you manage those? Well, those are managed as VCAP parameters in Cloud Foundry, if you're using Cloud Foundry for that. And you'll set those up in your manifest files, for example, to actually set some of those parameters. But talk to me afterwards if you want to talk about it in more detail.
Thanks very much, Anthony from BlueMix.